Welcome very much to the HealthTech Nordic workshop and seminar on the Agenda 2030 and the Global Sustainable Development Goals. And for this purpose, we have invited Elisabete from our project partner Smile Incubator to run the show for us. But please, Elisabete, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome. Today, we will be doing this SDGs workshop, which is really focused on helping you figuring out how your company is having an impact on the SDGs. And at Smile, so Smile is a life science incubator located in Lund in the south. And I've been working with the SDGs there for a year now, where we've been helping the companies that are in the incubator with the SDGs, and then creating tools and just really try to help them integrate this into their strategy. What I would like you to take away from this workshop is not only to refresh your knowledge of the SDGs and why they're important, because I am assuming that you already know, and as we talked, a lot of you have already been in contact with the SDGs. So, and for you to enroll, it means that you probably already have heard about it and have some basic understanding of their importance. So today we'll just quickly go through that, and then we'll dive into the real workshop, where we will look into the SDGs that your company is having an impact on. And I say here some because so yeah, we have a time constraint today, but also you will keep on working on it. It's never really complete. You do your assessment today, and you will continue. You will have to reassess perhaps in half a year or a year if your company grows really quickly, because as you grow, then the way you are impacting the world is also changing, and that's why it's a continuous process. And you also see that some of things might not be super relevant for your company as it is today, or depending on the maturity that your company has today. But as you grow again and have more employees, some of the SDGs become more and more important. So today we'll do take the first steps into identifying the SDGs, and I really hope you understand the process, so that after that you can continue by yourself, perhaps involve more team members, more stakeholders, and continue to build this plan for your impact on the SDGs. So let's go ahead, and to start, I placed on the chat this menti.com and a code. And it's okay. Don't be afraid to be wrong, or if you're not 100% sure. That's why we're doing it, to really sediment and review these terms and concepts. I guess it should have one more vote at least. Two, okay. We will go ahead, so we're not wasting too much time. So I'll show you. So yeah, you guys voted correctly. And the Sustainable Development Goals. So SDGs is everything, is all about sustainable development, building a future that is both suitable for that, where we don't take too much resources, and then it's suitable for the next generations. So it's all about sustainable development. Next question. Terms that are associated with the SDGs. Select all that apply. Okay, let's see. So we have Agenda 2030 and global goals. I mean, in a way, they could also be called world's goals, because it's every country in the United Nations has agreed to try to achieve these goals, and it's a common effort by every country. But they're really known by global goals, and they compose what is called the Agenda 2030. So it's what we're trying to work on together until the year of 2030. So that's the deadline to achieve these 17 goals that we'll be working on. All right. If you have questions, just let me know. Ask as we go along. So next question, why do they exist? Why do we have the SDGs? Let's see. Yes. So correct answer. You got it. I was kind of like, will you guys say the human rights? It is in a way. So the SDGs are based on the human rights, but it is really to make sure everyone is on the same page and on track to achieve something that has an impact on every country. So the motto is no one is left behind. We want to end poverty. We want to end hunger, and we don't have really that in Sweden, right? But we're trying to create the conditions that will bring the world to the same standard. That's kind of what we're striving for here. Next question. How many goals are out there, and how many targets and indicators are comprise the SDGs? See. Correct answer. Wow, you knew. Okay, I'm good. I'm happy. So, yes, 169 targets, 232 indicators. And the thing is, it doesn't really matter how many there are. This question is more to make you see that there are a lot, there are many. It's a bit overwhelming. But at the end of the day, it's just about decomposing these 17 goals and making sure that we have more measurable metrics so that we have something to strive for instead of a general goal like good health and well-being. So that's why we have the targets and the indicators. And we're almost, this is before the last one, so 2 more questions. Why are the SDGs important? So select one that is most relevant for you. And here there's no right answer. It's just for us to understand a bit why you think the SDGs are important for your business. Let's see. So because it's important and a way of assessing the sustainability of my business. Okay, is there someone that would like to elaborate on the importance? Why are they important then? Is there someone who would like to tell a bit, to share?
It just seems like a moral imperative.
Hmm?
Everybody should be working towards them.
Yeah. So it's important for us as humans in this world to have a sustainable world, and we should all work towards it. Yes, and it's also a way to assessing the sustainability of your business because they are quite there are quite many, and it kind of guarantees that you take into consideration several aspects of your business. But they are also a requirement for governmental funding, like Anita said, while applying for Vinova, then they asked about it. And if you also want to receive public procurement, or if you want to go in on a contest, then they will also require SDGs. So when it comes to governmental funding, SDGs are really important. Okay, so then last question, examples of the SDGs, all that apply. Okay, at least one, the good health and well-being. We kept on, that one is important for you. And actually, they are all. So all of these are SDGs. So peace, justice, and again, this is why they become a really good measure or a way to assess your business as a whole. So all of this is an SDG. Hunger, poverty, life below water. Again, not all of these are going to be applicable to your business, but they are SDGs. So good, thank you. This was. Are there any questions? This was a warm up. No? Okay. So if there aren't any questions, we will continue. And we've been talking about goals, and I just wanted to make the picture clear that SDGs are goals, and like you personally or you and your company, you also have goals. There perhaps X amount of products you would like to sell, and X amount of clients you would like to have. And personally, you might have your own goals. So you know that when it comes to goals, there are things you should be doing and things you should be avoiding. So, for instance, if you want to read a book a month, then perhaps you need to read a few pages every day. That should be what you need to do. And you should perhaps avoid, or instead of watching TV, then read those few pages. So you know there will always be things you'll have to do and things you'll have to avoid. And the same approach is the one we'll be taking when it comes to the SDGs, because we'll be looking on how your company is having a positive contribution and a positive impact. So, what is that you're doing that is helping to achieve the SDGs? And then there are perhaps things that you are also doing that we will have to change or reassess because they're having a negative impact. They're perhaps slowing down the achievement of the SDGs or creating barriers. So, this is how the workshop is built, and you will understand once we go into it. But keep this in mind. We'll be looking on how you are contributing and how you are perhaps having a negative impact or not contributing. Okay. So in the first part, we'll do an assessment and look into these two perspectives, and we'll have some discussion points and activity points. And then on step 2, we will prioritize, or at least I'll tell you how to do that. Um, so the approach that we are taking here and that we're talking about is something that Smile has adopted, because we, as I said before, are a life science incubator. So we only focus on life science. And as you saw, there are SDGs that are quite outside or not directly connected with life science. So we took a look at all the SDGs, all the targets, and we realized that there are a few specific targets that are relevant to most of the life science companies that we help at Smile. So, and this is where we are starting from. So instead of having to start from the 17 and 169 targets, we're starting from about 15 to 20 targets. And this is what we'll be doing today. To start, then, I would like you to open the links that I've posted on the chat. So there's one for the presentation, which is the presentation I'm having here. And this presentation is to help you kind of follow along, because maybe I moved into a slide that it's not really the slide you want to be reading. So it's just to make sure that you can always go back to the slides and take your own time and read if you need. And then the Excel file is this one here. How do I go there again? Yes, I'll go like here. Yeah, so you should be seeing. Okay, I already see that you're here. Perfect. So this is the Excel file, and below you can actually see, you'll find your company name. So
I have a question.
yes.
How you said you have put these links on the chat. I don't see these links on chat.
No? Okay, so let me see what has happened there. They are perhaps a bit above.
Earlier, maybe I joined later on this one.
Exactly. Okay, let me
Thank you.
then. Thank you. So now, yeah, and Elida also copy paste. So now for sure you should be able to see
Yes,
them.
thank you.
Thank you. The survey is for later, so that's for after the workshop. So now you should be all having access to the Excel, and below at the end of it you will see different tabs with the names of the companies. So perhaps I can yeah, some of these are not here today, but we have research on the go, Medieval, and where is Nielsen? Nielsen. So yeah, so here you are. I can take this one away as well. Great. So this is where you'll be working. If you do not want others to see what you're working with, then you can download this file and then work on your desktop. I would though ask you, if you don't have anything confidential to write, then it would be helpful for me to see, and also for your colleagues for your fellow participants to see what you're writing in case you have questions, so we can all see on the same screen. Otherwise, feel free to download it. This is where the action will happen today. But for now, let's go back to the PowerPoint, or at least I need to go back to the PowerPoint and start the actual workshop. Let's go. So the first part of the assessment will focus on your positive impact. Like I said before, we will be looking at positive and negative, and we'll start with the positive. This is because as a startup, you have probably not so many employees, and the biggest impact and biggest contribution towards to the SDGs are going to be through your products and your services. And this is really where we want to focus. We don't want to figure out all the SDGs that potentially you can be having an impact through your company. We want to find the ones where you have the most impact, because again, your resources are limited. You need to be focused. So we start with the positive impact, and we want to figure out where do your products or services are contributing towards the SDGs. And here you see a list of several developments, and then these numbers here reflect SDGs. So I'll give you an example of how we will go about it. So, pen. Let me see if I find one. So you mentioned antidepressants. So perhaps this one here could be for MediLevel. And then you see here number 3.4. So this is an SDG target. So what I want you to do is then go to your Excel file, and on the arrow you see under SDG target, on the column SDG target, you'll see a little arrow. And here you'll find a list of all the targets we'll be using during the workshop. So then I want you to look into the target 3.4. I can actually go into the Excel with you. To help you really understand. So I would go into the 3.4, and then I would read it. And then you need to think, does this make sense? Does this actually translate into what I'm doing and the products or services I am providing or not? And if it doesn't, it's fine. Then go ahead, look at that list and see if there is something else. At the end, it might be that your contribution is actually coming on the general good health and well-being, so on number 3, instead of a specific target. And that's okay. We want to be specific, and if there is a target, great. If not, then you will have to explain your contribution through this general target. And then you would select the number 3, ensure good health and well-being. And then here you see stakeholders, type of impact, current situation. So you would say perhaps that this is having an impact on your customer, on your user, and then the type of impact in this case, since we're looking into positive impact, we know it's positive. Your products are helping these users. And then in this column here, I want you to explain how you're having a positive impact. And this is really important because this part here, and that's why we have this Excel file, is what helps you really explain how you're having an impact, and if it's a negative, then how you can work to improve it and to change it. Because it's easy to just look at the SDGs and kind of pick a few and say, yeah, it's number 3. But then if you are not able to tell more about it, then it becomes empty. And at the end of the day, you don't want to just tell the SDGs, you want to be doing the work and actually having an impact, because it's your actions that will help achieving the SDGs, not you saying that you're having a contribution, right? So please go ahead and test it, and I'm here to help. So I'll give you a few minutes to go through the list. Again, if it's complicated to use my screen, the screen that I'm sharing, use the presentation, and then please start to write on your Excel file and ask questions, because I'm here, okay? So Gunnar, you wrote that in the SDG there is a digital inclusion goal. So again, perhaps this goal is this a goal that is, yeah, so you have a digital service. Do you know which goal number that is? Gunnar? Not sure. So that number is probably not there because in the companies we have at Smile, we haven't seen that there was a need for that. It's not relevant for most of them. What we do then at the end is that we go back and see if there's something particularly missing. But yeah, for most of the companies we've worked, these have been the SDGs. I'm not sure which.
I have a question regarding the goal that I want to achieve. I mean, should I consider this on a global level or local or somewhere in between, or where should I put the goals, sort of?
So which goal are you considering?
I'm looking at the 3.4. Yes.
Yes. So permanent and well-being. So this again, this is connecting with customer and users. So are your customers local or are they global?
Both.
Both. Then
well, that's our plan, of course, to be a global international company. So should I look at the goals for 2030, or should I make it like a shorter time span for 2021 or 2022, sort of?
You should apply it to yourself, to the company. So the 2030 goal is just, it's kind of the more political governmental deadline. But for yourself, so for the product you're selling and the way you want to impact your customers or users, you set those goals in relation to that. So you can say a goal for this year or for the next year. It's up to you. And you actually, so when it comes to the positive impact, because you're already having the contribution, you can use goals that are set goals that are reflecting the products, like maybe number of products you want to sell or number of users you want to reach, things that are connected with business metrics, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Does it make sense? Does it answer your question?
Yeah. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I have a question. I was looking at the 5.1 target. A big part of what we do, or a big part of our motivation for our product, is to ensure there is data on how women and ethnic minorities interact with different products, because we know that women and ethnic minorities are usually excluded from clinical trials, or have been historically to a large extent, and we still know that today there's a lack of knowledge about the women's reproductive system and how different drugs interact. We know we need more research on women. We need more data. But could I use this goal 5.1 and all forms of discrimination against all women and girls everywhere? It seems a little bit far to draw, because is it a form of discrimination, the lack of data on women?
I mean, it could be, because perhaps if you are collecting data on men or other data and excluding women, then it is a form of discrimination. But then again, that's why we have the what. So you what? Sorry.
Yeah, I lost you for a sec. I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So should I repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if they are not collecting data, if they're collecting data on some people or some type of data and excluding other type of data and not including a woman, then I would say it's a form of discrimination. It could also be that you select that one, or you could select the support scientific research and then explain how. If you explain how you think you're having an impact on that SDG, then it makes it valid, right? There is no right or wrong, really, as long as you can justify how your actions are contributing to it.
Okay. Right, because I'll give you an example. For example, I've been working with prosthetics. And then I heard the story about somebody that's been wearing a prosthetic leg for many years. And then she got pregnant, and then she put on weight, and then she had to go back and get her new, get her leg refitted. And then she lost weight after giving birth, and then she had to go back. Like, there are a lot of fittings that had to be done because her body was changing. And she was not, let's just say the healthcare system or wasn't very happy with the fact that she was coming back over and over and over again. And she had a really difficult sort of interaction. And this is the type of experience data that we want to collect in order to be able to improve how these services and products are developed. So I'm not sure, well, I'll think about it. But that's sort of one of the examples I had in mind.
There is also one that is universal healthcare. So it's a bit more making sure everyone has access to healthcare. So perhaps it could also suit this type of question you're targeting, where healthcare is not suitable or not really available equally for everyone. But I would focus on the equality more. I think it's more of an equality question.
Okay.
Yes, not just gender, but still physical, right? I mean, in that specific case, it's not gender necessarily that they excluded or that they didn't put it, or it is because she got pregnant. But I mean, a man could also put on weight, right?
Yeah.
So it's more that they didn't take that into consideration, the design or the whole process of the person in itself.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
And also one more thing, Anita, if that's a secondary, so if that's not where your product has or your service has the most impact, or if not, that's not really what you're focusing on, the first type of offer your service provides, if that's not it, then you could say in that particular point of collecting data and trying to improve people's conditions, you could select general health and well-being as well as, or even equality, to explain how you're thinking about it, about indirectly providing that service or developing that service in the future.
So you mean I could just say goal 3.0?
Yes, you could.
Okay.
Yes, especially if it's a indirect service, an indirect not service, but something that it's not your primary service, but it's something you would be doing by having your users using your service.
Right.
If I understood correctly.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going for everyone else? Nielsen and Medilevel.
Moving forward, slowly but steady.
Is it hard or is it easy to understand, and you understand the logic behind it?
Yeah, it's. I think it's more about what's behind the headlines in the different goals and activities. So, what how should I interpret it?
Yeah. Yeah, they can be hard to interpret it because they're made for governments. But that's why by doing this work, you perhaps is not obviously or obvious 100% that you're doing, you're selecting that SDG and it matches 100% what you're doing. But by explaining, then you can always justify, right? If you know why you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think we'll have to move on. So if you understood this part, then you'll continue to work on it after the workshop. Like I said, this is a work in progress. But if you understood the logic, then we already achieved something today.
And then
So
think this Excel sheet is a very, very good tool for all of you to take with you into your team, in your company, because this is not a one-man show, the thinking out and making, filling in all this information, because it's really has to do about the company.
Exactly.
So also the board should get involved, the management team, if you have any, etc. So
Exactly.
use the strength of the tool.
Yeah. So the hardest part might be even to then set goals and the sub goals and all that, because you need to think and you have to have this conversation with other team members or stakeholders. So yeah, this is just a start. Today is the beginning of this thought process you're putting behind your actions in your company towards the SDGs. So we will then continue. Are you still seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
May I interrupt one more thing here before continuing?
Yes.
For instance, like human level, it is so easy to just look at the obvious goals that are really in your focus, where you're looking. But if you go through all the goals, you might find other goals that might be equally important to your business as those that you grasp first. For instance, if you titrate the medication and optimize how much medicine the patient is using, they will be sending out maybe less medicine residues into the wastewater through the toilet. So
Yeah.
you are actually also working on goal 14, the life below water. And that might not come as a first, yes, we are working on the water here.
Yeah.
So
That's a very important goal, since I'm also a scuba instructor. So
yeah, it might be obvious for some, but to really go through
yeah,
all the goals and the sub goals, because then all of a sudden you will feel that, whoa, didn't think of that.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at supply chain a bit later. But yeah, exactly. So there are things that you can still be having an impact even though it's not the top of mind. And that's why we'll be now taking a look at potential risks. So we took a look at positive impact, but with the potential risks, you might see, for example, this case of chemicals and water, that actually you're also having a positive impact on that. But then again, at the end of the day, we're not looking to find all the SDGs where you're having an impact. We want to really focus on the ones where you have the most impact and guaranteeing that you keep on working towards that most impact. Okay. So when it comes then to risks, this reflects a lot the team, the work environment, and your supply chain. And we will start with the team and the work environment. And this reflects goals that are focused on gender equality, discrimination, and work environment. So I would like us to take a look at that. And if you are a solo entrepreneur, then this part might be a bit less relevant at this point because you're just one person. And if you're not looking into hiring, then it's also not as relevant right now. So I really want you to look at this as a way of becoming aware so that when you start hiring, when your team starts to grow, you already have that in the back of your mind and you can grow a sustainable business where you have a gender equal team and board. You're not you're not discriminating, and your work environment is with good conditions. So let's take a look at that. And let's start with gender equality because we talk about that and sometimes we don't really know what that means. It's not about just having a 50-50 um, equal number of females and males in your team. It's it is about having men and women with the same rights, the same responsibilities, same opportunities in all areas of life. This is really what it means to be gender equal. And like I said, not just an equal distribution in terms of numbers, because a lot of times what might happen is that if when it comes to same work, yes, you do want to give the same salary to a man and a woman because they're doing the exact same job. But when it comes to medicines, perhaps you need to adjust and give different medicines, because the gender is actually affecting the way the medicines interact with the body. So in that sense, you're not giving the exact same treatment. That wouldn't make sense, but you're being equal. So I want you to think in your organization if you're being gender equal and how many men and women are working there, if there are differences in the type of work that each of them are having to deal with, if you are collecting statistics based on gender, because as Anita was saying, data is really important. And if we don't have the data specifying those or showing us how we are treating people, it becomes hard to do something about it. So you need to become aware first, and collecting statistics can be a way to do that. And this really reflects targets 5.1 and 10.2. So ending discrimination against women and girls, and promote universal social, economical, political inclusion. So it's kind of, they're very similar in a way, and they go hand in hand, like what happens with so many other goals. They affect and impact each other. So I would like to hear your thoughts. Yes?
Yeah, sorry, I jumped the gun there. Okay, I see this all the time because I'm an engineer. I'm an electrical engineer. I work with software developers. And in a lot of companies, what I see is that they say, we have 50-50 men and women, so we're fine. But all the women are secretaries and all the men are software developers. And the secretaries get paid less and the software developers get paid more. So when, but there's nothing we can do about that, salary gap because these are different roles. What's your, I can't put my finger on it. I find it quite hard to argue, but it feels wrong. Do you have anything, how should a company be addressing something here, and how could they address that?
Yes. So when it comes to the salaries, yes, it's a tricky situation because they are actually doing different jobs, performing different roles. So it would be hard to justify that an engineer doing X tasks would be paid the same as the secretary doing X tasks, and that's kind of what creates the difference in the payment. But if there were to be engineer, a male and a female at that same company doing the same type of tasks, and then the female would have a lesser salary just because she's a female, that's where the problem really is. When it comes to the 50-50, yes, I mean, it's a way around it, right? I would say that the company should be looking to whom is doing most of the work. So for instance, maybe those engineers are having a lot of contact with their clients and are actually doing the core of the business. So they are delivering what that company is selling to the clients, and therefore it's affecting the way their work is provided to the outside. And if it's just men, then it is affecting those results. And then they should be taking a look how potentially having a more diverse team would benefit those results, because we have the statistics, we have the numbers to show that a diverse team brings more profit and better results. So yeah, that would be my approach. I would question if they could then take a look at how the business, what is the core to the business, and if there is really equality in that.
Vinnova is taking one aspect on this. When I work as an evaluator for grants at Vinnova, and we always have a question. So we should see how many of the female male are in decision-making positions, and so it's not just how many women, men do you have, but in what position, how can they affect, and how can they really, are they just hands or are they brains, so to say? Where are they, and how does that look? So that's a different angle of it, and then find a balance there.
Yeah, and we'll be looking at the leadership target after this one, where we'll see, so for instance, the board members, so 19% in Sweden are female, so on average in a company. And it hasn't really changed so much. So we really need to be aware in a company as a founder, CEO, and having a board that you can impact your board and you can change these numbers, so that we can start having more women in these positions. And yeah, we will get there. So for now, we will focus on these targets. Are there any other comments or thoughts in regards to this that you would like to share? Okay, so then we will go back to the Excel file and we'll look into this targets 5.1 and 10.2. So read them and try to think of in your business, in particular with your team, because perhaps your product is having an impact on that as well. But as we looked before, then that might not be the obvious or most impactful way. But think about your team, because you are in contact with your team, a lot. So think about your team if you have one, and how are you then having a positive or negative impact. For many companies, it could be that you actually need to create some sort of processes or guidelines or even a policy on how you approach gender equality and discrimination, diversity, and so forth. Perhaps you also need to start collecting statistics, separated by gender, like the salaries. That's for sure one you should be aware of. And yeah, so if you need also guidelines when you're recruiting, so that you're not biased and you're not just recruiting perhaps within your network, then you can also look into those guidelines, so that as you grow, again, this is we're preparing the ground as a startup, so that as you grow in a sustainable way. And maybe you're thinking, oh my God, a policy and guidelines, that sounds so big and so much work. And perhaps it is at this point, at the level your startup is and with the resources you have. But then think, okay, I will look at this once I'm hiring, once I'm thinking about hiring new people. I will take some time to look into how to hire in the right way. And perhaps you need to educate yourself, and that could be a goal in itself. Like I need to learn more, or someone in my team needs to learn more about this. Does it make sense?
Hello, I have a question, please.
Yes.
We have more than 50% women in our company, and including the founders and the board members. And I was thinking, actually, I would like a goal where I can meet the equality, not towards women and girls, but towards persons.
Mm.
It's very much with women and girls, but I think we need to find the equality. We need to address the persons, not the gender.
Okay, so it's more discrimination, maybe you're thinking? Not
Well,
discriminating?
no, but if I have more women in my company, it's not seen as negative thing,
Hmm.
because I want to meet the goals with the women and girls. And
I see. So, but then you could take, well, let's see if I understood correctly. So you're thinking, oh, I have too many
yes,
girls in my company, so I actually need to recruit and be aware of including or perhaps having more men in my company. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
so you don't want a target that says let's empower or for and forms of discrimination against women, because you want to target men.
yeah, because we're engineers, so we don't have the problem that was discussed before, with the secretaries being all women and the
Yeah.
engineers being all men. We are all engineers and scientists, and
Okay.
we have more women than men.
Yes. Um, is that something then it's important for your company to focus on? Is that a goal that it's perhaps is an internal goal, but not one that reflects directly the SDGs? You could potentially use just goal 5 because that's focus on achieving gender equality more generally, even though it also says empowering women. But again, if you describe it in and justify it in the right way, then it could be goal 5. But you could also not select this goal, if that makes sense. If it's something internal, like in the company, you think, yeah, we're good, we're hiring in the right way, and perhaps we want more men, but our default is to hire women. Then perhaps this is not an SDG that will have you will have the most contribution towards.
Yeah, but as you said, it's actually good if you have a diversity. So
Yes,
it should be
exactly.
a
So
goal,
So
right?
what you could do is select number 5,
Yeah,
and then
just
you
in
could,
general. Yeah.
yes, the general
Okay.
one.
Good.
And then you could, as a company, think, why have you so far, why have you reached that stage where you're hiring or have more women? What is that you're doing that has led to that? And think if that's something in your processes, in your systems that you need to change in order to keep doing or keep not doing. Because at the end, if you go too far on the other hand, and you start to intentionally try to hire men, then you perhaps might end up discriminating women and with a team that is again out of balance. um, so my suggestion would be to then set a goal to think about what is that you've been doing as a company that has led you to be in this situation, and what is that you want to take forward um, into into the hiring process.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Perhaps Margareta has some advice on that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a very, very tricky one. Question this, because we are so used to seeing male dominant teams as inequality, but female dominant teams is not seen as an equality.
Yeah.
And that in itself is an inequality.
Yes.
So we are biased by this as a human being. So I think you have to look at it from a contextual point of view. What is the solution that you are set to achieve? What is it that what type of change, what type of impact? Will your sales be better if you have a more gender balance team? Then of course you should work to make it more balanced. But then this has not just to do with gender, and here I think it also gets a little bit biased again, because just having white people, for instance, is a problem in some areas, depending on where you want to make your sales. Just having Nordic speaking people in your team could be a problem if you're trying to target a different part of the world. So you need to look at this equality thing from many aspects, not just gender, but gender always comes first.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. I think we'll have to move on again, but hopefully you've got an understanding of these SDGs and what do they mean. And I would like to also make sure that you take a look at these two SDGs, 5.5 and 16.7, that are connected with leadership. And this is what also Margareta was saying about the board and making sure you have the leadership that is not just male dominated, or again, that is not diverse enough. As startups, you don't have a lot of managers to think about, but you do have CEOs, you have the board of directors, and those are things where you can make a difference and think about how diverse and equal is your team in those positions. So let me take away this. Yes, so you see the pointer in the right way. So this is also two targets. We won't have time to go through them, but they are on the list as well. And like what happened with Gunnar in the beginning is, like, if you know about a target that you think you have an impact, then you can just write it down manually. Like I said, we start with the ones that we know are most relevant to most of the companies in life science, but there are always exceptions. And yeah, we have other ways to then at the end go back and make sure you've considered other targets, but perhaps those targets are not also where you have the most impact. It depends on your company, and that's why it's also subjective. But let's then move on, because I think we are running out of time. Another thing, I think Anita also touched this with the gender pay gap. So target 8.5 reflects the work conditions. And here I would like you to think about the salaries, the work conditions. In Sweden is mandatory to have a work environment policy, even though you don't have to document it if you have less than 10 employees. But it's good to be aware that you need to do that work and make sure your employees are happy. And then there's this thing about the equal pay for equal value. So there's a lot to consider under target 8.5 as well. So I hope you then reflect on it and take a look at the work environment conditions in your company. And in the PowerPoint you have, there are some links as well for you to read. Then I would like to also go a bit through the supply chain, and here we focus a lot on SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. And this might not be super applicable for companies like Medilevel and Gunnar's company as well. Perhaps even yours, Anita. So for when it comes to the supply chain, if you have a digital product, it becomes a bit tricky to analyze your value chain. You do have an office, you have servers, you have all those things, but again, the biggest impact, your biggest contribution to the SDGs will come from your products, and not so much by making sure your office is um, how do you say, environmentally approved. Um, so we do want to take a look at your supply chain, and yeah, please hang in there if this is not super applicable for you, but hopefully is relevant for those that have physical products. So usually we go about creating a product in this type of flow. We take something, we take resources, we create something, we make a product, and then we send this, we ship this to a user, a client, and then this client will use it and will end up in waste. So this has been traditionally the way we approach product development, but we know better, and more circular thinking and a circular economy is the approach to take when it comes to products. You really want to close the circle. If you take something, you want to make sure that you thought about all the possible ways of the way your product is impacting the environment or stakeholders. So with this approach of thinking of where you can recycle or reuse or repair, return, all the R's, you are taking a step further on how to use and reuse your product. And when it comes to this circular thinking, then you really want to not just take uh, resources from the natural resources that we have that we know are not sustainable. We want to be looking at what is already out there, source from the economy, and reuse or recycle that is already existing. So we want to add value to what is already out there in the materials we already have, and to create then inputs for perhaps other businesses. So some men's waste is another men's product in a way. And this is also a structure of looking at it. So within this take or make, use, reuse, or waste cycle, you could try to select your approach within your business model or your product, or perhaps a feature of your product. And then if that would be on existing stock, or if there would be a change in an upcoming product, or if you actually need to go into R&D and think, oh, okay, I actually want to return a feature, so I actually need to go and research how I'm going to do this, and I need to collaborate perhaps with many partners in order to achieve this. So I hope this tool can also help you think about this take and make and waste process. This,
I have a question there on
yeah.
this the supply chain thing. How does that what you just described is for products,
Yes.
but how does this apply for services? Because many of our HealthTech Nordic companies members have services,
Yes.
which is completely digital. So how should you handle the supply chain then?
Yes. So usually we skip these supply chain focus for companies that are fully digital. I took it in today because there were some companies that registered they had a physical product, which I'm not sure they're here today. I think maybe Osa, I don't remember, but so that's why I had it here so that they could have something to focus on. But with the digital companies, since their impact is coming from users using their device or digital services, then we skip the supply chain because it's not where they're having their most impact.
But I think that there could be aspects of from going from physical to go to digital that is part of the supply chain that could be very, very relevant. For instance, going to remote monitoring instead of driving and doing it in person. That will affect how much you drive, etc. So there could be aspects of it. So it's not just saying no that is the correct answer to everything. So you need to be thoughtful here.
Mm. Yeah, it's very individual to each company,
Yeah.
so it's hard to generalize it. But yes, this is kind of how we decided to simplify it for our companies at Smile, so that if they have a service, then focus on your product, on your service, and making that service work, and that impact will then be helping and contributing to the SDGs. But yes, you can take another approach and dedicate more time into figuring out your supply chain. Are there any questions here? I guess, yeah, since you're mostly digital, you're not finding this super relevant. But yes, so this is connected with SDG 12.5. So if you have a product, then think about all this process that you are building your product on, and see what you can change if you need to change something, and the type of impact you're having. And then, yeah, fill in the Excel file, putting your thoughts into how you can change. And this is some help.
I
So
have a question or
yes.
comment. Um, so we are we are software company, digital company, of course, but we are using wearable devices. Um, and since we are using existing wearable device, so do you think this could be a good argument to use as a SDG goal, because we are using existing devices? We are not making our own production yet another device, because there are devices which we can use if they are, of course, sharing their data, and if they are making partnership, so that could be taken into consideration, right?
Yes, so you are reusing a product that already exists, right?
Yes.
So yeah, instead, yeah, then I would consider this target as well. And there is also another one when it comes to partnerships, 17. I didn't bring it here today because I thought we wouldn't have time. So that if you are partnering with someone to make sure that your product or your service, in your case, contributes towards an SDG, then you could also take a look at, I think, 17.16, and kind of connect all of this together with you partnering with a company that already has a product out there, and you are reusing this into your service, therefore reducing the amount of resources being wasted or used.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yes.
Great.
Thanks.
Good that you're. Yes, let me just check the time. Okay, so we only have 10 more minutes. Um, I will just finish up with the step 2. So after you do this, after taking a look at these SDGs, which might be the ones that are, again, are most relevant for you, if you find that are others. So usually what we do is that we take a final look at the SDGs, and we see, okay, is there something that we think we're really missing, that somehow we know, yeah, but we are doing this and we think that this is really important, and somehow we didn't find this in the SDGs. Then select that one, and again, work your way through the Excel file, because at the end of the day, I think I said this several times, but I would really like you to take this away with you. We're not trying to find all the SDGs that you have a potential impact on. We're trying to find where you're having the most contribution, where your actions will bring the most impact, and both negative and positive. And when it comes to the negative, we want you to work your way to reduce that negative impact. So then once you have that list, the second step is to prioritize. You are a startup. You don't have as many resources as a big company, right? So you need to make sure that your focus and time is on the right goals, not just SDG goals, but on the goals you wrote on that Excel file, on the actions you need to take in order to bring that impact. So then it would be to take a look first at the ones that you're having a negative impact, and then thinking your way: is this correct? Is this where we're having where we need to focus, where we're having our most contribution, our biggest contribution? And if not, then you need to rearrange. And this is also really important to have a conversation with a business coach or a business advisor, because yeah, many of you are also in the process of figuring out your business model, rearranging it. So it's good to have more people around you that can advise you on what is that you should put your attention on, and what is the company's goals as well. So there is a bigger conversation. And that's why I would say the next steps is for you to take this first introduction and process, and keep on doing it, because, as I said, there might be SDGs that you're missing, or we didn't have time to even go through them to really fill the Excel file. And involve your stakeholders, bring more team members into this process, because you need to set goals and sub goals. This is something that will affect your whole team. But even board members, investors, if you can, suppliers, this is a common process and it will impact them as well. So you want to involve them. And then don't forget that this is a continuous progress. You're not, once you have your SDGs, you're not done forever. As your company evolves, your SDGs might also change and your impact might also change. So you perhaps need to set another date to take a look at this and to follow up. And don't forget to go ahead with the plan, right? So you've been writing these things on as goals and follow-up dates. So make sure now that you execute and actually make that contribution real. I was just saying that if you want more help, we do have a tool. So if you want to check that out, we have some discounts still going on, 30% off. And this is basically the process, but a bit more elaborated with like a PDF at the end with everything, with your SDGs and everything ready to go. But yeah, I would just say if you have, sorry.
So this Excel sheet thing that we are using now is something that you need to subscribe?
No.
No? You
No,
said
this
you
is
have
for
some
you.
tools. Is it some other tools, or I don't understand?
Yes, so what we call the SDG scan is an online tool. So instead of going through this process yourself on the Excel file, it guides you in online digitally, and by the end you can download an Excel file and you can download a PDF with all the SDGs that you have figured out in your assessment. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So if you have a few minutes, it would be great to have some sort of feedback. But before, please ask any other questions you might have. And yeah, you can also email me later. If you go ahead with your assessment and you have questions, feel free to ask, oh, I'm not sure about this goal, or this is on my mind. So feel free. Okay, here is my email. It's my name at smileincubator.life.
Yeah.
So the link for the survey is also on the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's anonymous. It's just a few questions really to get your feedback. And yeah, I think you've heard me. Feel free to email me with questions or other thoughts you have after.